Hello everyone, my name is Lisa and I'm glad to see you all at Winter Data Meetup organized by DataZen Community and Day. Join Juan Pulido to discover how to track and improve GenAI applications using LangFuse. Learn why observability matters, see a live demo, and get practical insights to optimize AI performance. Don't miss this chance to boost your AI skills with real world tools and techniques. Before we jump into our session, I would love to take a moment to ask for your support in growing our community and recognizing our incredible speakers. If you're enjoying today's discussions and want to stay updated on upcoming events and talks, please take a second to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Your participation not only acknowledges our efforts, but also helps us reach a wider audience, allowing more people to learn from these insightful discussions. Also, in the video description, you will find a link to the talk page where you can share your feedback, award the speaker a badge, and rate the session. Your input is incredibly valuable. It helps us improve future events and ensures our speakers get the recognition they deserve for their hard work. Additionally, we would love to hear from you throughout the talk. If you have any questions or insights, feel free to drop them into the chat. Our team will be actively monitoring and we will gather your questions for the Q&A session at the end. Your contributions make the discussion even richer, so don't hesitate to participate. And now, let's welcome our speaker to share his valuable insights with us. Juan, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So, hey everyone, my name is Juan Pulido. Today I'm going to be talking or saying a lot of things about observability, right? Today we are going to check on a specific tool that is called LangFuse, and we are going to check what is that data observability in terms of LLM applications. So, just a quick introduction. I'm a lead data software engineer at EPAM. I'm also part of the core team member of DataSen Latam, as you can see here in this logo. Um, you can find me in GitHub as JJ Pulido S, and as in LinkedIn. And this is my email in case that you want to contact me. This is just a quick QR that you can scan to join the DataSen community. It's basically data community that we have in Latin America, in that we focus a lot on, let's say, growing people in the data area. So if you are interested in learning about data engineering, data science, and much more, please go and join. So today we are going to talk a little bit about what is that, let's say, observability and why that's a common deal in data. We're going to talk also about prompt management, prompt versioning, understanding what is a trace in terms of LangFuse, setting metrics, and also how to evaluate your application based on those metrics. What we don't be doing today is basically like to showing from scratch how to set up LangFuse. That is the tool that we're going to show today. Also, we are not going to focus on presenting LLMs, RAGs, or agents architectures. We are just going to focus on the most common issues that we see on, let's say, on the observability side of things when we are working with LLMs, and also how we can use tools as LangFuse to solve those kind of issues. So first, let's just start with what is observability and why it is really useful for us. So basically, I have just summarized. There is a lot of different points why you need observability, but basically, you need to detect errors in your applications. And when you are working with LLMs, there is a lot of possibilities that you can have hallucinations, you can have prompt attacks, and also that you can even introduce bugs by yourself. So that's why you need to have any kind of setting metrics and also to monitor how your application is doing in production and all the different environments that you already have. Or if you are handling data from different clients and you have a model for each client or maybe an application for each client, it's really important that you can detect errors for them quickly and also having quality checks to verify that it is working as expected. And also, if you have a really nice feedback loop for your application, it is really nice to understand what is the performance of your applications, let's say, in the time, right? If they are getting better or not. So we need to find a way to measure that, and also an easy way to check what is going on, same as detecting areas for improvement. So going directly to the quality check, uh, some of the questions that I ask myself is, when we have an LLM application, is how much improvement, right? Let's say in percentage. Um, how much of that improvement has increased on the last month, right? For the main scores for our application, is that really different of what has happened in the last 3 months, or is something really similar? Maybe has been a change there in the behind the hood model that is affecting my whole application. Can we go really quickly and check those changes over the time? So that's something that most of the time we don't know, and there is no like an easy way to track that when we are building LLM applications. So you need a tool like LangFuse to do that. Or let's imagine what happens if suddenly a LLM start generating toxic content or something like that. Do we have like a metric for measure that kind of toxicity? And if there is a threshold, do we have like an alerting or active monitoring set up over those metrics? Can you go and check that really easily if you have already an application up and running in production? So that's one of the parts that we want to cover with LangFuse. Same with performance measurement. So is it really your application performing better through your feedback loop? Do you have those mechanisms for alerting, like, hey, the efficiency or maybe the accuracy is going lower than expected? These are some of the main questions that we have to ask ourselves when we are developing LLM applications, right? And also, what happens if, for some reason, our application becomes trendy and we get a 10x or a 100x of number of users coming into our website or making requests to our application? Is there any metric that we have, uh, or that maybe has a, like, automatic actions, right, to scale up our application? Is that something that we can maybe even predict in some way? So that's really important to have in our applications if we want to do reliable applications for sure. The next part is, let's just start thinking here. How easy is for you to debug your LLM generations? Let's say that you have an application that has 100, maybe 1,000 of generations by minute. How easy is to go and check all them, or check a standardized metric, or the average of the accuracy for, or some score that you're interested on, let's say by minute, by hour? Is that something that you can go and check it really quickly, or it is something that you will have to download information, you will have to do several aggregations or something like that? This will be great if we have like an external tool that handles all that for us, right? And also, in case of security, what if you have, I don't know, let's say several APIs, several models? Are you really bulletproofing your system against prompt attacks or ingestions? Do you have like a data set that you can test against for that? So having all those data sets in a consolidated platform or in a centralized platform that you can just go and run those ones and quickly gather feedback or gather insights from those possible errors, that is really nice. And obviously without stopping your application in production. And also really important here about the disaster recovery. Do you have mechanisms for disaster recovery in your LLM applications? Do you know exactly when maybe those events happens and how it affects your application? So that's a part of important of having really good metrics, well-defined metrics, and also a really nice tool for observability. The last one, not least, for sure, identifying room for improvement. So is it clear for you if in your LLM application, is there a specific call, let's say, or a stage in the whole chaining of calls to the LLM generation, if there is a room for improvement in terms of tokens, outputs, input tokens, even latency, and so on? So that's something that we need to gather some feedback on, and that's why this kind of observability tools are really nice. Also to keep your KPIs and business metrics for sure, and the cost monitoring. So here, as you can see, we're going to talk a little bit about LangFuse. That is like the tool that I choose for this data observability thing, but for sure there are a lot more out there. So why did I choose LangFuse? Basically, because it was really easy to use or set up in my local, and it can be a cloud-based service or self-host. So that means that you just run a Docker Compose and you already have it on your machine. And it has a nice dashboard like this one that we are going to take a look later. Also, it is open source, so you can go and take a look at the code that is there, even contribute to that platform. And also, and here I have like a point, and that is designed for LLM apps feedback loop, but in a really not the standard way. So I recommend you at the end of this presentation to go and take a look at the LangFuse documentation to see how they integrate LangFuse as a data observability tool for all the feedback loop in LLM applications. So this is the first thing that we see when we open the LangFuse server. Is kind of a dashboard that tells you, well, let's say how much has we spent on the last, let's say on a specific range of time. You can define here 1 hour, 1 year, 3 months, whatever you need. You can see here the model costs. In this case, we were using GPT 3.5 Turbo, but you can have here a lot of different models. That's also really important. If your LLM application is using several APIs, let's say OpenAI, Anthropic, and other ones, is it really easy for you to take a look at the costs without going through all those vendor specific APIs or vendor specific platform pages and taking a look at the cost? Well, here you can have a consolidation of all those ones. So here, as we can see, it tells you the tokens that it has spent in that range of time, and also how it reflects in terms of cost, and also the scoring that you already have defined for this specific let's say like application. So in this case, 45 total scores were tracked. We have some user feedback and also some manual scores. And also it brings to you some average of those score metrics. And also here we can see uh, some really nice plots about the traces. So here, if we have more traces, we can more or less say that we have really good traffic, and we can detect here where are those when are those specific days that has more traffic than other ones or specific months for our application. So going on forward, one important thing in the dashboard is that you can, let's say, like request your own plots, and also you can create your own plots based on scoring and based on the inner metrics from the models that you want to take a look at. So here, for instance, we have trace and generation count. So in this case, we have Mistral, and we have also the embedding. So it kind of have the time series kind of have some kind of correlation here in terms of behavior, but because most probably we are generating content based on a RAG application that uses an embedding model. So that's why it looks so similar here. But also, it will be nice to take a look at those specific points of time where we are not having a lot of traces. Maybe is our application, was our application up and running this day in specific, or it had a, I don't know, a shutdown time of 2 hours, 3 hours that affected the trace and generation counts. And also, it will be great to take a look at what happened on this day. Also, LangFuse provides you like some, let's say, prediction for the time series. So this can more or less allows you, obviously, if you have more data, the prediction can be, it will be better. So you can try to have systems that auto scales with this kind of predictions as well. So for instance, what is the day with highest generation traffic in my application? That will be a really nice question. Or when the last regression happened, or when was the day that my application failed the most? Also here, other plots that we can just add, like in this case, the user feedback count. If you integrated some kind of let's say metrics for the user to say like, yeah, I really like this generation, or I really hate it. So you can push those metrics also into LangFuse, and you can see it in real time here. And this is a really nice one that includes the latency of the models by percentile. So here you can see how it works over the time. If it is improving or not, the latency by changing models or, I don't know, changing the prompts in some ways. And also you can even detect here if by some reason OpenAI started giving to you 429 status codes or maybe 500, something happened really, really badly on their side and suddenly it stopped working, you can notice that here directly. And also, for instance, the average cost of the chat execution in case that your application is using kind of a chat model. So one important thing is that when we are building LLM applications, we can have several generations of steps. So sometimes we need to aggregate them to see at least, let's say, if we want to monitor costs, to see like the general overview of our spending. So here we can see, for instance, for this for this application that we had like some peak here. I would like to take a look, for instance, if this were my application, what happened here, for instance, like what happened on those peaks. Maybe we deployed something, we deployed a new prompt, and now it is delivering more tokens. It is putting more outputs on the tokens. So it is really nice to take a look at those kind of things, in real time, and also the average speed of some models. So good thing here is that we can take a look at, to be honest, a lot of metrics based on interactions, based on generations, based on your own scores. And we're going to take a look at that later, how to push your own scores into LangFuse. So basically, a trace here, let's say like it capture an individual request, right, performing your LLM application. There are several types of traces, but I'm not going to go that deep on this presentation. But basically, you have an input, you have an output there. In this case, write a poem in Spanish. So this is like the equivalence of roses are red, violets are blue, Spanish. Also, you have there some additional metadata that you can just push, like the sessions IDs, what was the user that generated this trace, also some elapsed time. And this is a really nice tool that is that you can have annotations, collaborative annotations, really, because you can have a team working on the Lang, let's say on the LangFuse side of the things, the data observability part. So there is, if you have a huge team, about 10 data scientists there, all of them can start building all those annotations that can be categorical, binary, continuous, and several different types there. So now let's take a look at how the traces looks like in the LangFuse dashboard. So here we just took a trace. This is the trace ID. Uh, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Hope yes. So here we can see the total cost for per execution. If the tax for, let's say, for this trace. And really important part about the annotations is that we have this button here, in which one, if we click there, this little small part of window is going to open here, in which one you can decide to annotate manually if the accuracy was good or bad. This is defined by you. So you can have here a lot of different metrics. You can put that, let's say, by hand. And also later we are going to take a look what are the different ways that we can score a trace or a generation in this case. And also you can put even comments in uh, in natural language even here. So it will be great for a team that is working to, let's say, I saw this generation, this trace, and I want to really take a look at that one later. We can just put a comment here like to take a look later or something like that. And also, as you can see here, the metadata. So for this specific example, there is some user that pushed this trace here. So that's all something really important, that if you have an application that behind the hood is capturing a lot of user information, you can even see which user generated which trace here. So as I mentioned, it's an input and output, some elapsed time, some additional metadata, and the scoring thing here that you can see is also there. And really important part, and to be honest, this was one of the things that I like the most about LangFuse is how we handle prompts in general. So something that I really hate is doing something like this in my application. Let's say that we are using Python. So I have prompt version one, write a poem in Spanish, then I iterate, I find a better prompt for that, write a good poem in Spanish. Then I have a third version. So having like the versioning of those prompts at variable level or at code level is not the best practice, right? So imagine start changing all those variables names or maybe having, I don't know, 100 of different version prompts here. So it's not scalable, right? And it's more difficult to maintain. And what happens if I need to redeploy my application to, to add a new prompt version? So yeah, definitely not. Or maybe if you are reading your prompts from a prompt txt or something like that, there are better ways to do that. Also, I have seen other people that push those prompts into secrets, like in secrets managers or something like that. That will be great. But here you have more than just storing the prompts in a versioned way. We're going to take a look at that, but also we can see metrics about those prompt changes. So, and also what happened if I want to go to a previous version of my prompt? Let's say I'm in prompt 3, I notice, okay, no, this introduced a bug, I need to roll back. Is that really easy in your current LLM application? Or you will need to trigger a whole redeploy thing because, yeah, basically you are handling your prompts as a strength in your application. Is that a good practice? Maybe not. Maybe there is better ways to do this. So that's why I really love this tool because it manages and it handles all the prompt versioning for me. So in this case, we can see the prompts. I have here, let's say, 5, 6 different prompts. You can have as many as you want. You can create it even on the LangFuse dashboard. You can push it by via SDK, via API. So there is a lot of different ways to handle that. And also, as we can see here, it supports text and audio. So that's also really nice that you can have several types of prompts here. And also, as you can see here, there is also like a version numbers. So that means that these, maybe we have iterated through this one 6 times, for this one only 2 times. And also we can take a look at how many generations have we, um, let's say, how many generations do we have based on those prompts. If we take a look at a specific prompt here, we can see that we have the history of versions, and this helps us to not having the strings or hard coded in our applications. And also you can put some labels there, like I want to use this version for staging, or maybe I have a new version that I don't want to deploy yet because I don't know if I'm going to introduce a bug or a problem. So I labeled that one as a test, and I can just grab for this specific prompt based only on the labels that we have here. Also, we have the latest label that is one of the most used ones, right? But we can split it here by environments and even by clients. So this is really nice because you can have an overview, a quick overview of your prompts, and also if you have 100 of prompts, you can have those ones in a really centralized way here. Also, if you have, I don't know, 8, 9 different environments, you can have control of those environments via this kind of labels, which is really nice. And also, you can roll back really quickly. So let's imagine that we are using version 5, right? And we notice a decrease on accuracy, or we notice that there is a problem. So we can just move the latest label to a different version, let's say the 4th version, and that's it. We don't need to redeploy our application. Everything is going to be handled by LangFuse. So that's really nice for quick iteration, let's say. And also we have for sure here some metrics in which one, just to mention some of them, we can have like the median of the input tokens, median of the output tokens, same as the cost. As we can see here, in terms of latency, it has been decreasing a little bit. So maybe there has been some efforts there for reducing the cost. and the latency here, maybe less steps, or maybe the prompts has been refined here. So it is really nice to see those metrics because if you are not even capturing that information, answering those kind of insightful questions are really difficult if you're not capturing the right information. So here you don't need to build your own tool to capture that data. You just need, you know, just to delegate that to this kind of tools. And so if we click on one of those versions, we can see something like this, in which one we have like the prompt. In this case, you can have dynamic variables that you can just introduce as many as you want, basically. So just a quick example of a rack system in which one we insert some kind of context here. And also we kind of have like a git blame feature here in which one we can see that the version 6 was, let's say, pushed by Juan Pulido, but version 4 was pushed by any other member. And that's something that, because of the time I'm not going to mention here, but basically LangFuse also allows you to have users in the LangFuse application. So you can see even here who modified, at which time was modified, and also all that. So you can keep a trace of what has happening in the last months, let's say, with the prompt. If someone push a change for sure, right, that broke the prompt, you can see it here, and you can blame that person for that. So good. And also, let's start talking about the evaluation part of the things. So for sure, we need to find a way to score our application and to push metrics there. Some of them are conciseness, context relevance, correctness, toxicity, and there is a lot of them, to be honest. So the good thing about having LangFuse implemented in your LLM application or in your feedback loop is that you can integrate really easily evaluation within your application. How do we do that? They have like an evaluation, let's say like a dashboard here, which one we can see like a table with different traces, different generations. And here, not only like the total cost that it appears in a lot of different parts. So if you want to go deeply and take a look at every specific one, but also you will see like the scoring for that. In this case, there is like a joyfulness score, and you can have here even like a reason that you can push via SDK, via API, or even in the UI, you can write a reason for that score. And here we have three different ways to push those kind of scoring here. The first one is basically in the UI, right? You can create your own scores, and already LangFuse has some predefined scores that you can use, which is really nice. If you don't want to implement those ones and you don't know how to implement those kind of scores by your own, there is already some predefined ways, predefined templates of evaluation in LangFuse that you can just use. And also, um, you can push your own metrics, your own scores. You can have externally you can have like an external system that handles all this evaluation with your own specific metrics that are not the standards, let's say, and you can push those ones here as well. Some of the examples that you can use for this kind of scoring or feedback that at the end are kind of like similar of annotations is thumbs up, thumbs down, 1 to 5 star rating. You can check those ones here. And then when we go in every trace detail, you will see something like this, in which one you can see all the scores metrics, right? So in this case, 1, 1, 1, 1. And you can see even there that if you have your own defined metrics, there is like a small comment for those ones, the value of those ones, and the name of the score, and even the timestamp there. So for this specific example, we created let's say, an evaluator called language detector v1, in which one as you can more or less imagine, it is detecting if the the the, um, the input and the output is using the same language, basically. So if the input and the output are the same, it prints one. If it is not, maybe 0, -1. So you can define your own behaviors here. And that's really nice to have because you can keep monitoring and you keep track of those ones let's say, over the months, over the years here. And also, for instance, here you also have other scores like helpfulness, and you can define your own toxicity. We talked about that one earlier. And how do we create those ones? So basically, there is a function in LangFuse that we can create like an eval template. As I already mentioned, there are some predefined ones. You don't need to do anything. You just have to put the provider and the model that you want to use. And there is already like some predefined evaluators by LangFuse that you can just click there and start using. So it's really straightforward. But also you can use a LLM as a judge. In this case, for the language detector, that was is not a predefined evaluator by LangFuse. So it was created by something like this. So the prompt is the input and the output language the same? You have the input as a dynamic variable and the output as another dynamic variable. So here we put the provider, OpenAI, GPT-4 Turbo. We set up some parameters for the model, and then we specify the score. Give us a 1 for the same language, 0 for different ones. And also, if you want to put some reasoning here, you can do it as well. So that's a second way that you can use, let's say, for creating evaluation and scoring in your application. So you can use the predefined ones, you can use the LLM as a judge, and via SDK, you can push your own scoring system. So how can you keep track of those traces? Not only in a table, you can keep a track of those ones even on the dashboard. So for instance, here you can have by model. Here we have two models, but we can have maybe 5 or 6 different models, and we can select even a score analytics here, right? I just want to take a look at 2 or 3 different specific metrics of all of them that I have. I want just to take a look over the time how they have been increasing or decreasing, maybe, right? So that's why it is useful to have those score system here in LangFuse because you can aggregate them and you can see it in really useful plots. And for instance, one nice one here evaluator will be like context relevance, maybe for RAG implementations. So here we can have like the average of this context relevance, and we can notice that maybe it is decreasing over the last month. So this allows us to understand first and to identify that something is happening, right? So that's why it is really important. And as I mentioned to you, we can push those metrics via SDK. So that means that you can use dpval, you can use ragas, you can use your own metrics, and yeah, that allows you a lot of different possibilities for scoring. And LangFuse provides you the dashboards for taking a look at them around the time. So yeah, it's nice. And then about the data sets that I will say like is the last part of the evaluation. So let's imagine that I want to measure how my LLM is doing. So it's not just a matter of setting metrics there, taking a look in the dashboard, and that's it. We want to have, let's say, like a golden data set that I know that should be working in a specific way. So we have like pairs of input outputs, right? And we know what is the specific output that should be for that specific input. So we test those input output pairs against the LLM, and we start comparing the outputs from the LLM and the golden data set. If they are kind of similar, we can give it a score there. So it is really important to have those kind of data sets when you are developing LLM applications. So here we have just a bunch of different data sets here. This is for capital cities. As you can imagine, the input is going to be like a country. The output is going to be more or less like a city, right? So here you can have 6, 7, 8 different data sets and all the data sets that you can find. Also, you can push your own data sets and add annotation traces that you have seen. Let's say today you notice that there was a really interesting trace that you would add to a data set. You can do that. Also, I would include here, let's say for the part of security, like a data set that evaluates against prompt injections, prompt attacks, and any other different way to that I can more or less be sure that my application is bulletproof against those specific attacks. And here you can see for this specific data set, capital cities 11, there are 10 items there. It was run 4 times. It was created on this day, and the last run was this one. This is one of the things that maybe for a lot of people it is not that important, but for me it is. If I have hundreds of data sets, I want to really know when was the last time, the last day or the last time that we run those ones, right? Because maybe there is a data set that it was maybe imported, but it was not even used, or maybe we have a data set that was just run really long time ago, and those are really specific cases that we need to test. So that's important also to that the LangFuse provides you here. And also for any data set, you can see like the runs. In this case, for capital cities 11, you can see the 4 runs that we can put a name here, right? And also it brings to you some really nice metrics, right? Like the average of running that specific data set, the latency of running that specific data set. And also, as you can see, it can vary a lot, right? And if you are using different models, if your application is using different tooling, that will be affected, and you can uh, even take a look at like, yeah, maybe running this data set is going to take a lot of time, right? It's going to put a lot of, let's say, stress on the application. So let's run that on 2 a.m. or at a specific moment where there are no users using my application. And also you can have a track of the cost. I asked you if you have an LLM application, do you know how much or in average, what is the cost of running your golden data sets against your application? Do you have that number really clear in your mind? Because sometimes it is not. So that's why we use tools like this to keep track of those things. And also when we go and we enter into the data set, we can see here, it's basically a paired set of inputs, outputs, right? So here is South Africa, Victoria, Argentina, Buenos Aires, and we have a status. So that means that we can go here in actions and deactivate some of the ones that maybe uh, we don't want to test anymore, or maybe we can add new items without, again, without any kind of redeploy. We don't need to go and touch our application. This is everything handled, let's say, like on a layer above our application. We can create, modify, deactivate, even erase input outputs. And also, yeah, as I mentioned, you can even compare, let's say, for this specific data set you runs, let's imagine that you're running this every week, one time a week. So you can even compare if something has happening at prompt level or maybe at model level, right? Just only taking a look at this. And also we can even compare those runs, those executions for the same, let's say for the same input output. So here, as we can see, for South Korea, Seoul, we have a specific score that is called exact match. We are doing this via API. We can compare those ones against different runs against, again, the time. And that's something that will be really difficult to test because remember that this is just one grain on the whole data set. Maybe your data set has 500 uh, pairs of input outputs. So here you can even grab a more granular way and compare just 2 or 3 of them. And it brings you like a bunch of different metrics that will allow you to make decisions. And also, this is something that I mentioned about the traces, and it's that let's imagine that I have my application and I notice that there is an input coming from an user that is trying to jailbreak my application. And I notice that, okay, it worked in some way. This user managed to jailbreak my application. So I want now to test, to let's say, to take that input that the user used for jailbreaking my application as a new grain on my data set. We can do it that really quickly. We can just click on add to data set. We just specify the data set, in this case, regressions, but it can be attacks, for instance. And it will add the input that the user put here and the expected output that in this case will be the output of our application, but here we can specify what should be the expected output here. Like, I don't know, if this was an attack, maybe um, I cannot solve your problem or something like that, or I won't be doing that. I don't know, something like that. And even you can specify some metadata for that. And with just two different clicks, you add it to a data set. So that's something that we don't need to modify any config file. We don't need to modify anything on our side or redeploy the application. It's just a matter of clicking there. That's it. So jumping to some conclusion here is that definitely you need an observability tool for sure for your application. If not, you are losing a lot of useful information, and not only for application performance, but also to ensure that you have a secure application and also that it's reliable. For sure, there is a lot of different other applications for this. LangFuse is not the only one. There is Langsmith, maybe you have heard about that one. Datadog, TrueLens, and a lot of them. Why did I use LangFuse? Because I could deploy it on my local without acquiring any kind of enterprise license, without spending money. Basically, it was a Docker Compose up, and that was it. So it was really easy to deploy on my machine. And also, if you are using a totally local environment with OLAMA or something similar, you can have your complete feedback loop in your application. You can start iterating in your application, let's say in prompts, models, and so on, without going to any cloud-based solution. You can do everything on your local. And also, if you have working on the LLM field, you know that you must build a data set, or I will say several data sets, right? And you have to create your own metrics and choose your metrics wisely, but also the ability to track those scores, those metrics properly is basically a game changer. So you need that for your application because you can detect those points of failures quickly, more quickly, basically. And also, we know that the feedback loop, it's something really important not only for LLM-based applications, but also for software applications. So observability in general is crucial for fast iteration. So we can really know that we are going through the right direction, right? Through the right way. So we need tools like these ones for observability, in this case for LLM observability, but for sure we need tools in general for observability in our applications. That makes a huge difference when developing. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining today. There was a part that was going to be a demo. Because of the time, we're not going to uh, show here the demo. But if you follow me in my social media, that you will find it on this QR. I'm going to be pushing that video, so you can go and take a look at how I use LangFuse in my daily basis work in local. So please go ahead and scan this QR code. You will find there also some useful links for reference for this presentation, my social media, so you can go and follow me there for more LLM content and data engineering content as well. And yeah, also, I think that we can start with the questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the presentation. Let's move on to the questions. I guess maybe some of them you've already covered, but anyway.
Okay.
So the first question is, how is LangFuse better or different than other AI monitoring tools out there?
Good question. To be honest, I haven't had the chance to take a look at other tools. This was like the first one that I noticed. Okay, I can deploy this locally. Yeah, that's it. So I started with this one. For sure, there is a lot of tools out there that are really great. So it will be just a matter of starting comparing. But I noticed that everything that I needed was there in LangFuse. So that's why I stopped to research a little bit on that part.
Great. Okay, so is LangFuse ready for production? Is it scalable and have multi-user support?
Yes, it does. For sure, if you have your self-host LangFuse, you will have to take care of a lot of extra things. But if you are using the cloud-based service, it is totally handled for you, so you don't need to do anything there.
Okay. Is LangFuse a good choice for a short project like POC?
I will say that for that, it's ideal. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have that in your local, so you don't need to spend even a dime, a cent of a dollar. So you can just have it in your local, start testing, iterating, and that's it. And when you're ready, you can just move to a cloud-based service and
Mm-hmm.
now spending more money.
Okay, so about costs, we have a question. Does it depend on API calls?
No, let's say LangFuse, the tool, yeah, if you have it on your local, that's it's in my case. Yeah, it doesn't depend of any model cost. You can see there the cost of those models,
Mhm.
but yeah, it doesn't cost anything. But if you have the cloud-based solutions, I think that there are some pricing there. Will be great to take a look at your specific case.
Okay. What data format is supported by LangFuse?
Data formats supported by LangFuse. I'm not really sure if I'm following the question, but basically, if you want to push information to LangFuse, you can do it via API or via
Mhm.
SDK. So you can push it, let's say, as strings or as numbers. So I will say that that's the format that we handle the data there, or maybe,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I hope it's an answer. Is it possible to use LangFuse to generate Python code and compare code quality from different LLMs?
Okay, good point. So LangFuse at all is not a tool for generating things. It's more
Mhm.
for observing what we are generating. So you can generate Python code using any of the LLMs that are out there, and then you can monitor and establish metrics and scores for your code evaluation, right? And see if your code it was great or well
Mhm.
generated, and then see it there in LangFuse.
Yeah, makes sense. uh, what are the must-watch metrics for keeping a GenAI app healthy?
I think that that depends totally on your use case. So maybe there are applications that are taking a look at proteins, so they have their specific metrics. It cannot be whatever metrics. Like for instance, in that case, that you are generating proteins or strings of proteins. Let's say it doesn't matter the toxicity, right? It is for other cases. Yeah. So you have to take a look at your use case to define your metrics.
Okay, I guess we have related question. What does toxicity means?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. To be honest, I don't know how to answer that question because maybe there is a lot of different definitions for toxicity, but in this case, it's a metric for determine if we have a, let's say our generation is, yeah, it doesn't contain any bias or something like that. Maybe I will try to take a look at the toxicity metrics because that's maybe evaluated differently depending of the library. So yeah, it depends.
Mhm.
It depends on the implementation.
Okay. Um, is it possible to test Gen AIs for security issues?
Yes, and one of the things that I mentioned today is will be great to have not only one, maybe 5 or 10 different data sets against security risks that you can continuously start testing against your application.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we have the last question for today for you.
Okay.
Does LangFuse allow to manage a pool of instance to serve huge load of requests?
Okay, when you are using the cloud-based service, that's being handled by you, but for sure you can deploy as many LangFuse instances as you want, but you will have probably to take care of all the load balancing between those instances. So yeah, I think that that's totally possible if you want to handle it on your side.
Mhm. Okay, and we have one more question
Okay.
from the chat. Can I use LangFuse to iterate and improve my prompt over time?
Let's say LangFuse is not going to improve your prompt over time, but it's going to show you the metrics and the scores over the prompts. over the prompt versions, and you can start deciding like I'm going through the right way or I'm not
Mhm.
based on your score. So there you can decide and start continue integrating maybe more tools for reducing quantity of tokens or the quality of your prompts. And you can see it there reflected, like the change, the real change based on the metrics that you decide.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation, and thank you everyone for joining today's discussion. In the description, you will find a link to access the presentation file and recording. And don't forget to say speaker thank you by awarding the badge and rating the talk. Be sure to subscribe to our channels for more content like this, and we hope to see you at the next session of the Winter Data Meetup. Bye bye.